the Waterford Economic to order.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is a web-based special meeting of the Economic Development Commission of the Town of Waterford, and we're operating under the following procedures for this call. The meeting is being audio and video recorded. A recording of the video will be available within 24 hours and will be posted to the Town of Waterford's Planning Department website. To ensure good sound quality, the default rule for the meeting is that everyone will remain on mute unless they are speaking. If an attendee creates an audio or visual disruption, the moderator may place them on mute or remove them from the meeting if the disruption continues. We will not be using the chat feature in this meeting. This is a special meeting, therefore only the topic posted on today's agenda can be discussed. We appreciate your attendance, and should you have any questions, you can call our staff at 860-444-5813 between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. And for Zoom protocol, Mark is going to call the roll real quick and we'll go from there.
Okay, the roll call for the EDC, May 6, 2022. Dan Radden.
Here.
Ed Lusher.
Here.
Joe Zemansky.
Here.
Eric Palmer. Okay, Leslie Salima. Greg Attanasio. Julie Greco.
Here.
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3 regular members here, and Dan, you can appoint if you'd like alternate for either Eric Palmer or Leslie Salima.
Julie, would you like to be seated as a regular for this meeting, or would you prefer just to watch?
No, I can be a regular.
Okay, motion to seat Julie for Eric, or actually for Eric, since Eric may show up.
Very good. You're ready to go.
Okay, let's get into the item on the call. So this is a discussion of a potential statement to the representative town meeting regarding the Economic Development Commission's proposed fiscal year 2023 budget. I'd just like to say before we begin discussion, members of the EDC have on a volunteer basis joined this body because we share a desire to improve the economic conditions in our town. And any discussion that is had during this session and in the proposed statement should not be construed as our lack of faith in economic development and progress that can be made in our town, or a lack of confidence in any member of leadership or volunteer positions in the town. This is purely our desire to forge a path forward that is more productive for this body and the bodies that it works with. So with that said, would anybody like to open discussion on the potential statement, or would anybody like some background on the potential statement, since we haven't met as a group, but I've spoken with each member individually with the exception of Julie?
I would love to hear background.
Me also, because I was away for the last meeting.
Okay, so Waterford Economic Development Commission in its current instantiation was formed in March of 2021 when I was voted to be the chair upon Kevin's resignation. The first thing that we did upon this new formation was studying and understanding the enabling legislation that underlies the existence of this body. And state statutes are extremely constraining and restrictive in terms of what we can and can't do. Under state statute, EDC is enabled for the promotion and development of economic resources to 5 things: conduct research into economic conditions and trends, make recommendations regarding action to improve the economic conditions. So again, that's recommend, not act. Coordinate the activities of and cooperate with unofficial bodies organized to promote economic development. So that is not official bodies that we organize, that is unofficial bodies. Advertise and distribute media, which will further its purposes, and annually prepare a report of activities and recommendations for improving economic conditions and development. So you can look at all of that, and what you take away is essentially this group is a think tank. This is a policy advisor. This is not a group that is enabled by statute to do things. So upon our study and understanding of the enabling legislation, we tried to prioritize activities that would work within the restrictions that are placed upon this body. I did some research into trends and conditions and made a recommendation of an economic gardening approach as opposed to sort of a traditional standard hope and pray that some large employer comes in and creates 1 billion jobs in exchange for a tax subsidy that goes away and then the jobs go away. That's been used successfully in similar types of places that don't have high population and wage growth. Economic Development Commission made policy recommendations regarding actions on cannabis and clean energy to improve the economic condition. Unfortunately, those were not effective in making any change. Economic Development Commission attempted to coordinate activities to catalyze new business formation and to fund capital improvements to existing businesses using funds that were earmarked under the American Rescue Plan Act. But unfortunately, those programs were canceled, one of which was replaced by a new program that Abby and the planning office are spearheading. And finally, Economic Development Commission prepared a year-end report of activities and recommendations for improving economic conditions and development, in which the central thesis was there is a lack of cohesive economic development strategy in Waterford. So we have tried to do what we can do within the enabling legislation, and it hasn't been effective. Waterford's economy looks to be improving. Vacant storefronts are filled, new construction is happening with new units of housing, but Economic Development Commission has played no role in what seems to be an improving Waterford economy. And we desire to play a role in improving the economy. So the potential statement is the way it is not working. And we would like to recommend that the budget that we have previously asked for is not the best use of taxpayer funds as being assigned to and accountable to Economic Development Commission, because we've not proven ourselves to be an effective body to be shepherds of town taxpayer money. We secondarily recommend, this is the proposed statement, that Economic Development Commission be paused, that we not meet for 12 months, and instead that the RTM spin up an ad hoc economic strategy task force for between 4 and 6 months that would work with some of us, with some members of town government, and with the public to develop an economic strategy that everyone can buy into and that works for our community. If you ask 5 people at town hall what our economic strategy is today, I think you'll get 6 or 7 different answers, and that extends to the public and this body. It's great that we have seen improvements, but they don't ladder up to a particular strategy, which makes it difficult for this body to be effective. Secondarily, once the strategic work is done, we recommend that RTM craft municipal enabling legislation, because the state enabling legislation has been too restrictive for the nature of the way that we work in Waterford and the fact that we lack a full-time dedicated economic development person on town staff. So with the new strategy work and the enabling legislation, we would then spin up RTM with that background a year from now. And that would be the recommendation or the proposed statement to RTM at the budget hearing next Monday. I realize that's a lot of information, but I hope that's helpful.
I have a question. Number one, is it possible for you to email me those 5 points that you just made? I couldn't write that fast. If you email me that, it gives me time to read it. And number 2, what does RTM stand for?
Representative Town Meeting. RTM is basically more or less our city council.
City Council. Okay, thank you. Okay, perfect. That was it. Anybody else have a question?
Do folks have feedback on the statement that Dan read, or anything just for discussion on the point?
I'll just chime in. I think everyone has good intentions here and would like to move stuff forward, but being on this committee more than a year now, there just hasn't been anything that we've been able to either move forward or contribute to. So meeting, once a month and giving time and effort on different initiatives just hasn't produced any results. So I fully support the statement that Dan read.
And Julie, I just emailed those points to you on the enabling legislation.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm just getting to learn what this is all about and what the role is that everybody is playing. So when you said that nothing's really been done in a year, are you hitting roadblocks? Are you, like, what is the main reason why nothing's really developed?
Well, I think if I could speak for the group, because I've spoken with each member over the last week, since I'm not allowed to talk to any two people at the same time, that constitutes an unofficial meeting. It seems that we align on the diagnosis that the enabling legislation is too restrictive for us to do anything. We lack a way of working agreement and process and flow with town government. And because town government lacks a wholly dedicated or majority dedicated economic development staff member, it's very difficult to get things done, because I think economic development is 1/4 or 1/5 or 1/6 of Abby's office and Mark's office. It doesn't get the attention that it gets when you have a director or manager of economic development sitting in town government. So we lack a way of working, we lack a resource at town hall, and the enabling legislation is too restrictive for us to be able to do anything independently or collaboratively with the resources we have available.
Well, I like to make a couple of comments. I think that I understand the frustration with some of these things, because when I came on the commission, which is almost 3 years ago, they didn't have a mission. They didn't know what the mission was, and they were also not accomplishing anything. But I wanted to lend my support to see if we could turn that around. And we've had a couple of changes that looked very promising. And I think we have some good people, on this commission. Jill and Dan have been excellent additions, and Kevin Marks was a great guy, and he's no longer with the commission. But I don't know that I'm in favor of suspending the commission for a year, because I don't think that that's gonna, to just walk away from it for a year, that's not helping the situation. And I think that what we have to do is we have to, stay engaged and continue our efforts to gain some productivity, and to just, work through it and make it better. I mean, it's never been a successful commission in the last 2.5 years at least. And, I think that was all our plan was to help that happen. And, I'm still enthusiastic about getting it to work. I don't think that suspending it is going to help it at all. Unless, I know you said to redefine it, but I think we, as a commission, we would have more clout in redefining it than not being engaged and being, let somebody else draft the rules. I mean, we know what's lacking, and it may be important for us to be a part of it.
Ed, thanks for your comments. And in speaking with some folks who've been around even longer than you, and thank you for being part of this for so long. The history of EDC in Waterford seems to be that nothing ever has been accomplished as long as there's been an Economic Development Commission. So it's very difficult for me to understand how continuing the way things are going and hoping things change will produce change when it's never been effective as long as it's been a body. The plan that I thought we were aligned around would enable us to work with the legislative body, the RTM, who's enabled to pass laws. We are not, to create legislation and running room for this body to be effective. I just help me understand how continuing to do the same thing and expecting different results is likely to be successful.
No, I didn't say to continue to do the same thing. I said that we've recognized where we should go, and we should be in the room to have some input onto what happens to this commission and how it's changed. If we walk away from it, it's going to be a commission built by other people without our experience.
So there's one clarifying point I want to make that I didn't include as I was going through the recommended statement, which is everyone that I spoke to on the EDC would volunteer to be part of the strategic task force. Whether or not the RTM if the RTM were to agree to spin up this economic strategic task force, whether they would appoint all of the same membership, the intention would be that we would all continue to be available to support that work or economic consulting and advising to town government. We have specific areas of expertise, Ed with small business and real estate, Jill with retail and the mall. So I think that there are different ways that we can continue to serve without, frankly, the waste of our time, Ed and, Mark and Abby's time and taxpayer dollars to fund the meetings that accomplish nothing and have accomplished nothing for however many years EDC has been a thing.
I have a question. Are there any other surrounding towns with this similar commission? Like East
No.
Lyme or Groton?
Every town in Waterford, every town in Connecticut has the same state enabling legislation. The distinction is many towns that are effective at economic development have an economic development person on staff. And Abby, Mark, correct me if that's not an accurate statement.
Not everyone does. There's a range around the states. Certainly, if you're looking at towns like Groton that have multiple folks who are strictly dedicated to economic development, absolutely. You could, the more dedicated hours you have, absolutely, the more you can do. But there are towns out there that specifically have a group of folks who function as sort of a quasi chamber of commerce. They take on and are authorized to, develop marketing materials for the town, do the outreach to individual businesses, work with brokers to fill vacant spaces and to talk about what they need, translate those needs back to the regulatory bodies in town. So there are different ways of working with different commissions across the state. Some of them are purely volunteer driven, and in smaller communities may not have any staff at all, not even a planning department sort of behind it. So there is a range, and it's sort of a matter of how that group comes together to work on various issues.
So you're thinking that if we had somebody on staff, that we would have a lot more say in producing effective behavior or changes or recommendations? Is that what you're saying? That we'd better off getting someone on staff?
I think that my understanding prior to this meeting was that was the aligned understanding of this group. And maybe Ed, I'm not sure if I understood correctly your perspective, but I think that's the desire. It's what we put in our year-end report. Our recommendation was that we have a dedicated person on Abby's team or in town hall. I also realize we are not a town that is intending to significantly grow its headcount and budget, so we may have to be patient on that. And part of the reason that we want to make this statement ahead of the budget defense on Monday is when you look at virtually all other department and commission budgets year over year, bless you, we're looking flat or single digits up. And this body asked for what looks like 137% increase, if I remember correctly, because we've asked for $16,000 to hire a consultant to help with some of this work. There's optics to that where everybody else is roughly flat and we're asking for 137% increase that don't necessarily square with the results and effectiveness of this body. So we wanted to have this discussion ahead of that budget defense because I sense from talking to every member of this commission that we don't necessarily believe that it's working.
Well, I know Waterford is hopefully going to reduce our, what's it called, mill rate for taxes, which means we have, we're sitting in the, with money, extra money, and I don't know why they wouldn't consider hiring somebody then. I would think that would be a strong argument to say, well, let's just give it a try. Maybe, the recommendation could be, well, let's give it, 4 or 5 years, see what happens. And then if we're not getting anywhere during that time, because every time you introduce a new committee or commission, yeah, it takes a while for it to get off the ground and have any significant meaning to the town. So who would we have to see to recommend somebody get paid for that? I personally don't want the job. I'm not recommending me. I'm just saying I'm happy to stay a volunteer, but who would we have to go see to promote that?
So
Actually, I think the commission has been in existence for quite a few years, right, Abby?
decades. And I think that, so there's sort of a two-part piece. One is, what can a commission accomplish with its individual members performing some of the work that a paid staff person may or may not do. The other piece is to get a staff member through the town of Waterford. It's not going to be a separate sort of contracted position. There's multiple layers of approvals. And so it has to go through budget. It's got to go through the personnel review board. Depending on the level in which it's brought in, there may be union conversations. There's a whole host of things that fundamentally begin with, will a position be funded or not? And to date, the funding conversation has not been supported. There's not been enough, sort of backing to say, listen, at the level of salary that would be necessary to sustain a position plus benefits, and get the level of expertise that folks are hoping for. To put an $80,000, $90,000 a year job on the table is a big ask. And so that without that support, the alternative was to see whether or not consulting funds could be obtained to assist the commission and staff in sort of crafting something that has sort of whether it's a way of working, a plan, a series of goals and metrics and measurable outcomes, which is what the commission put in its budget this year. That $16,000 that Dan was referring to was really to kind of do that kind of work. And $16,000 for what was it? For how many hours of consulting time were put into that, but 80 hours or so. To have somebody, so the commission would do the bulk of the work and then have a third party kind of come in and give some neutral professional expertise. One of those recommendations could be that somebody is hired full-time and we start to build that support. But in the absence of that, and without having the budget to add staff at this point, that was kind of the sort of consolation was, let's see if you can move the ball this much. And I think what Dan is saying is that accepting that money without having previously shown results feels both frustrating and a little bit disingenuous from some of the members of the commission. And so I think that's really the discussion, is the money, should it remain to attempt some of the work that it was originally included, that the EDC voted to put in the budget to try to do some of this work, or is there a different direction that should be taken entirely, sort of to get to this end of an effective economic development program for the town?
Okay.
But it's not a simple process to get a full-time permanent position.
Okay.
I just have, Julie, I don't think we even asked you to introduce yourself and give us some background. And I wasn't aware that when you even emailed me who you were. So that's why I sent it to the town. And so if you want to kind of give us a little background and, what kind of prompted you to join the commission as well.
All right, I'll try to keep it pretty brief. I have an associate's and a bachelor's, one from Bryant University and one from University of New Haven. Worked for General Dynamics for 10 years, 5 here at Electric Boat and 5 in San Diego as a corporate auditor. Then I moved back here with my husband and my baby, and we had a second daughter. And I stayed home for a few years before I started my own business as a financial planner and I did that for about 16 years. So I had clients all over Connecticut for those 16 years. Then I started another company that bought distressed homes and fixed them up and sold them. So I became a real estate investor, where we bought probate, we wholesaled, we did fixing, we have rentals, and that's what I've done for the last, I think, 10 years. Then I went to see, and that's been kind of put on hold just because everyone knows how crazy the market is right now. We're just waiting for it to probably crash in the housing market. Then I went to see Rob Brule, who used to be my daughter's soccer coach in high school, the 4 years. And I told him that I would JFK him. And he looked at me like, what? I said, listen, I'm not talking about, shooting. I'm talking about not asking, not what you can do for me, what can I do for you? And I just thought it would be nice to volunteer for the town of Waterford and just see what I could do to help out. And he's the one who recommended I join this commission. And I said, yeah, I'd be happy to give it a shot. I have no idea what you guys were doing. He just said it would be a great place for me to start to give back to our community and see where Waterford is heading. So that's it.
Well, welcome. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet all of you. And it turns out I already know Ed. His son-in-law is my first cousin's son. So we're not really related, but kind of. And I remember him running his restaurant in, I think that was Montville, right? Or yeah, that was Montville. He had a really good restaurant there for all those years. So that was fun. Anybody else have any questions? So how many people are on this commission anyway?
4 regulars and an alternate.
Five regulars and is it two or three alternates? Something?
5, did you say? 5 regulars and 2 alternate?
Yes.
Got it, okay. All right, so I have kind of a picture of what's going on. It's going to take a while for me to grasp exactly where we're heading. So I'm just going to hang in there and watch. Hopefully you guys are going to continue. Are you still thinking about continuing this commission? Or are you at the point where you're saying, I'm not sure we're going to keep this together? Like, what is the...
I guess my understanding from talking to Abby and the first selectman is that whether we meet or not, the commission exists because it's enabled by legislation to exist. So I think we don't actually have the authority to disband. We have the authority to resign and we have the authority not to meet. But the commission exists regardless of our decisions and actions.
Okay.
Oh, my position is for us to just walk away and not meet certainly cannot help change the direction of the commission. And I think that if we do want to change the direction, we have to have some people that are engaged to do it. And so, I'm on board for doing what it takes to ultimately get economic development in this town.
Do you have any ideas or proposals or recommendations for what you might do differently to help us be effective, Ed?
Well, I never wanted to chair the commission because, then it's got to be my direction. And I really do not want to dedicate that amount of time, but I always came on as a willing volunteer to help. I mean, I think that Kevin had a lot of great ideas and he was only here a short period of time and he disappeared. I don't know what happened with his job, but I went to several meetings with him and it seemed like we were making some progress. And then, he's gone. And, I think that now we're a little burnt out with what's happening, but I think we got to just push ahead and persevere and eventually down the road, we will have some accomplishments. You said that, you said to me at one time, if you were on this commission for 5 years, what would you like to see happen? And, we talked about a few things, and I think that Jill is fantastic, addition to this commission. And I think that we are making some progress along some lines, even though it doesn't seem like, and not me, but I mean, Jill has been on this commission, and there have been accomplishments made at the mall indirectly through this commission. I mean, really through Jill. So nobody in town knows where these things are coming from, but, I think we are doing some stuff here. And I think that if we get it all put together, we'll be successful in the long run. Can't give up.
But, Ed, I can't cite one thing that we've actually done. And in the capacity that I provided Abby direction and information, I mean, I can simply do that as a citizen or on a task force or something like that. I don't need to come to a monthly meeting and we sit there and there's not been one thing that we've put together or done that has moved forward.
Well,
And as far as Kevin, I mean, I don't think Kevin got anything accomplished either. So we've had this history of this group being together and wasting a lot of resource that could have been effective in other ways in the town.
Well, that's the thing that from day one, I was not in favor of hiring anybody because I'm an ROI guy. If you're going to put money into something, there's got to be results. And I thought that the first thing you do is change the course of the ship, and then you refuel and do what you got to do. But everybody, I can't remember, boy, I'm at a loss for his name. But anyway, the chair, when I got on, they were, they had no mission, and they wanted to fund a person, and they wanted to spend, over $100,000 because Groton has a person. And I was not in favor of that from day one until we get this commission doing something so that we can, then we can go to the RTM and say, look, we do great things. We need to have a person, or we need to fund it. We haven't accomplished anything yet, but I don't know that disbanding is going to make that different. I mean, it's not the same thing to, we're trying to not do what's been done in the past on this commission. And if we just walk away from it, then there'd be no commission at all. So I don't know.
I would disagree with, but I would disagree with walking away. We've just suspended it to allocate resource in a different manner. And that resource can enable this commission to actually survive and prosper. I mean, every meeting we've gone to, nothing has resulted in anything getting done. And you, like you said in the beginning, we have a great group of folks that are willing to do things. We're not enabled to get those things done with the current state of the commission. I mean, no one's walking away. Everyone's just going into a different group to fix this group.
Well, what are Rob's thoughts about this? I mean, have you had contact? I mean, being the chair, Dan, are you in direct communication with Rob, and does he understand
I met with Rob on Wednesday, and he understands what we potentially could propose to RTM. He would like also to see us just continue things and not make any changes. And we have a fundamental disagreement about that.
I'm curious, so there's sort of the two-part piece. So either suspended meetings and however that happens, and a separate body. If for some reason the RTM did not take up the request to review and assign its own committee to this issue, of what the enabling ordinances are in town to support the work of the commission. Is there a scenario in which this commission suspends all other potential work and says the only thing we will work on and the only thing that will be on the commission's agenda is the recrafting and bringing proposed legislation to the RTM for their consideration? And the only reason I asked that is that it sounds like there's a little bit of a split in folks who want to maintain the structure of the EDC, and then folks who want to sort of break that structure in order to not be bogged down by that existing mold. And I'm not advocating for one position or another. I'm looking at different ways of accomplishing what seems to be an agreed upon goal that while there's been talk and there's energy to get things done, the way in which the approach is happening isn't effective. And so is there, within the existing framework of the EDC, can the EDC craft proposed legislation to bring to the RTM to say, this is what we want?
I think I can speak for myself, Eric, Greg, and probably Jill, but tell me if I'm wrong in representing you in this statement, Jill. I don't think that we feel that we have the ability to craft legislation until we have an alignment around strategy between town hall, this group, and the public. So to just say we're going to write new laws is incumbent upon us to figure out why we exist and what we want to do and how we're going to do it before we go say, let's write laws to support and enable that. So that's the reason that was the central thesis of the annual report, the lack of cohesive aligned strategy that is consistently applied across town at all levels. And for us to craft legislation, we would just be guessing at what we would want to.
Are we even allowed to do that as a commission?
I wasn't suggesting that you skip the conversation or public involvement. I mean, I think there's a lot that goes into getting to a point where you even have a draft. You can draft anything you want and submit it to the RTM for consideration. You can't adopt it, but you can absolutely propose something and ask that they take it to committee for review.
So I guess the underlying problem is twofold. It is not just the lack of strategy, it is the lack of way of working. And the proposal of the ad hoc economic strategy task force would be comprised of X number of the public, most likely the members of the EDC as currently constituted, plus yourself, Abby, and the first selectman or another designee of town government, because we feel that it is so important that we are aligned around a strategy and the public is brought in to be part of that process. Today, I think Abby has a strategy. I think Mark has a strategy. I think Rob has a strategy that changes from hour to hour. And I think that for us to be effective in not only doing what we want to do as a commission, as well as crafting that legislation, we need the strategy and the way of working to be changed. The way it is today is not working. The relationship between town hall and this commission is not working. Abby, it's your 4th or 5th or 6th or 8th priority to do economic development. It's not your fault. That's just the way that the job is scoped today. So it's very difficult for us to get alignment with the finance director, with the first selectman, because we don't have a lot of mind share in town hall. So the proposal of the task force to include multiple members of elected government is an attempt to try to build that way of working that is more cohesive and more collaborative, as opposed to we try to come up with an idea of a thing we can do that is permitted under the enabling legislation. We do some work on it, and then it gets to town hall and it gets shut down, which has happened so many times in the last year.
So I think our topic is about this budget and whether or not it's going to get presented next week. Is that correct?
The budget will be presented. It's already on the call of the RTM. It's for Monday night. What the commission, and so typically what happens is at these presentations for every budget, so I've got 6 or 7 budgets that I manage, I would give an opening statement to say, okay, here's sort of what the commission is working on. Here's why there's been this requested increase, what the money would be used for, and all those types of things. And then they can ask questions back and forth. I think what Dan was talking about is having something that is available to the RTM members from the beginning of the meeting and at public comment, so that there can be a discussion when the budget comes up about whether or not to fund the elements of the commission budget. There's a couple things in that I think are important to note. Certainly, there are elements that can be specifically recommended for reduction if you don't think that those, if you no longer think as a commission that those funds should be part of your request. The thing you can do is the RTM can cut a budget, it cannot raise a budget. And so there are some funds that are currently housed in the Economic Development Commission budget, such as the Sector and Chamber of Commerce membership dues, that if those go away, the RTM cannot add them in elsewhere. I had a chat with the finance director about this before this meeting. So if the statement to sort of make the bold statement from the commission winds up being, we want to defund the commission, you need to be aware that that means the town of Waterford does not have dues money available easily for, for those things, which, some things like sector membership and other pieces do have broader ramifications for the work we do in our department and, grant writing support and some other things. So it's not just the commission that those things support. If you are saying that, you think that the budget of $16,000 and the money that was put in for, going to ICSC and all that kind of stuff should come out, then you can make that recommendation as well. You can craft whatever statement, obviously, that you want around those. I just want you to be aware of what money is where and the fact that if it comes out of this budget, it doesn't get put back elsewhere. We'd have to go through a whole different separate appropriation process and 3 individual meetings to request for that money to be added to somebody else's budget after the start of the year.
Well, if the money is left in and nobody meets, the money can't be spent. So there'll be no money spent. I mean, there's no point in damaging the commission, just don't spend the money.
Most, if not all, of the current EDC budget is not spent by the EDC, it's spent by the planning office for economic development.
Well, the sector money is, yeah.
That's the only money that is spent out of it. We don't use this budget for anything that's not commission work, with the exception of the sector stuff, which was put in this budget. And it's just historically been there, so that's where it's remained.
Right, but I'm saying, don't take it out. I mean, you need that money for sector anyway.
I guess one distinction I want to make is that whatever statement we do or do not issue along with the budget hearing, I feel personally, speaking for myself and not for the commission, I feel it's important that we make a statement that we acknowledge that we desire to be good stewards of any funds that are appropriated to EDC, and that we acknowledge that it has not been effective, because I think it is a very jarring picture to look at the budget as a whole, and every other department and commission has a 0 or a single-digit increase, or in some cases decreases, and then there's a 137% on EDC. So regardless of what recommendation or statement we make, I think it's important that it be acknowledged that we're trying to be responsible here. Whether we continue to meet is secondary to the fact that I think it will look bad if we don't say something to acknowledge why it looks the way that it does.
So we're the largest increase in budget out of any department in the town.
By far, by orders of magnitude, but on a percentage basis, not on a dollar basis.
Yeah.
Right, which has been approved at 2 other rounds of budget evaluation, both by the Board of Selectmen and by the Board of Finance. In part, I think because, there's been some broad support to allow this commission to have the resources it needs to move forward.
But the dollar amount is actually, I mean, there never was a big budget anyway. So if you're looking, I mean, what's the dollar amount of increase, Abby? Sorry. Get the calculator out.
Yeah, well,
We're going from 7103 to 27,471.
Yeah, so it's not even that much.
Through the entire budget is dues, conference, education, which is mostly sector, I think.
yeah, previously that was most of it. There were some, minor printing and postage and those types of things. But the big, again, you upped the advertising line, the professional fees line, which is where that $16,000 for consulting money to craft the plan and action items for the commission is housed. And then in dues, conferences, and education, you've also added funds to go to ICSC next year. the feedback during the budget presentations, what garnered more questioning than the $16,000 was the ICSC funding and whether or not the town of Waterford is prepared to go, and who would go to represent the town of Waterford for, sort of being at that event, and with what marketing materials and what message and those types of things. That was,
Well, just the membership to ICSC too.
yeah, I mean, that the membership to ICSC is pretty minor, so that's not enormous. But the conference attendance is what was most, or the actual event attendance is what garnered the most conversation, I think, at the Board of Finance budget hearing, from what I can recall.
Because I know Ed really wanted to go. That was a joke, Ed.
You had no response. You writers. So we're coming up on 10 from the hour, and I appreciate the diversity of viewpoints. It feels like it would be disingenuous for us to just go with the statement that I've drafted as is, because I think Ed has very strong, clear opinions to the contrary. Would anybody have a proposal on how to move forward? Ed, what would you say to the RTM on Monday?
What would I say to RTM? What?
On Monday, when we're defending the budget, saying we're asking for 173% increase on a.
Well, I know that's the whole purpose of this discussion. It's not an easy thing. I was never in favor of increasing this budget. But I think that to walk away from the commission and not meet, I don't think we're going to improve the benefit of having a commission like this in the town at all. And unless I'm wrong, I think that the sector money follows every organization in town. That's why it was the big item in our budget. That should remain. And if we don't spend any money, there's no harm done. The money wouldn't get spent. I mean, so I don't know. I think that if it's gone through 2 rounds, I wasn't the one that promoted this increase. I was against it the whole time, but now that it's been through 2 rounds and it's going to be approved, all of a sudden we're going to just disband. I mean, I think that.
It's pause is the proposal.
Clause, yeah, well.
Developing strategy and legislation that would enable us to be effective.
But Ed, you talk about there not being a cost, and going from a $7,000 budget to a 26 isn't a lot, but us meeting every week and people working on, projects extensively and then nothing moving forward, that is a cost, right? Like,
I understand. I feel like we have, set out to do things and have accomplished very little, if anything. I agree, but I don't think that. Yeah, I just don't see the solution in walking away from it. I mean, my whole life it's been hold on, turn it around. I mean, I built businesses where things didn't look good, and you just work harder, and they've all been successful. But and if I'm in the minority here, we don't need a unanimous thing. I mean,
no, but
when we talked about marijuana, I was the guy that said, I don't think we should have marijuana, and I know I'm not going to win that thing, and I respect everybody, and it's fine, but I wouldn't vote for it. I kind of feel like the same on this. I mean, it doesn't have to be a unanimous vote. I mean, obviously, maybe I'm the only one that feels this way, but I don't know that we should. I don't feel like I should walk away from it at this point in time. I committed to do it, and maybe that would change, but it hasn't changed yet. I'm not that easy.
I'm not looking at this as quitting. I'm looking at it as redirecting to make this better. And that's, when Dan and I were talking, I felt that the solution he came up with was a little more effective and that we might be able to try something different. Because what's happened this past year and years before hasn't changed anything either. And I didn't see the harm in trying something slightly different for, the rest of the year, if that resulted in a better solution moving forward.
Well, if you guys vote to suspend meetings, we won't have meetings, but we have a new person on now and, kind of, it just takes away any opportunity. I think that it's not in our best interest to suspend the meetings, even though, I feel every month I'm going nowhere to get nothing done. I just think that I'm not surprised by that. I've watched government my whole life and I stayed out of it. And I was in the private sector and everything I did was successful, but and it takes a lot of work. But, I'm in a position now where I got involved in this and I totally understand everybody's comments. I totally understand them. I just don't know that and if you guys vote to suspend the meetings, there won't be meetings and I won't be there. But if that doesn't happen, I'm going to continue to work on this commission and do what I can to help.
Well, I would say we're close to the end of our time, and Julie, you've had to process a lot of information in a very short period of time without any or significant previous context. Since we've seated you as a member, are you comfortable voting for or against the proposed message at this point?
Yeah, I'm totally comfortable with it.
Okay. So here's the problem. If we vote and we're split 2-2, what happens, Abby and Mark?
The motion fails.
We need a majority.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess the question is, if the motion fails, do we want to make any statement to the RTM, or do we just want to keep our mouth shut and say this is the budget we proposed and we're sticking with it?
They're just gonna, make first and then first make the motion instead of
I don't think they're there yet.
Yeah.
They're not at a motion yet.
yeah, right.
Is there, I mean, and I guess, is there any scenario in which a statement without a modification to the budget is a decent solution, in which the commission recognizes that there is significant work to be done and that you will be asking the RTM to assist in crafting something to help you work in a more effective manner, and the commission can make the decision about whether to continue meeting or not at another meeting? Because it seems like there's two issues. There's what happens in terms of the recommendation or any change thereto for budget, and what happens with the commission's ongoing work for the remainder of the year. Those seem like somewhat two different things. And the only difference will be after July 1, will the commission have money to apply toward whatever work happens or not? And then peripherally, when the small business grants get going, when we are working with a consultant to make that go forward, will the commission have any role in awarding those grants, or will we move that to a different location?
Yeah, I think that's a solid restatement and clarification of the question that I was trying to ask Abby. Thanks. Anybody? Okay. Well, I would say in the interest of time, does anybody want to make a motion to vote for or against the proposed memo to the RTM? Yes vote would be that we make the statement, and no vote would be that we don't make the statement. Do we have a motion?
I will make the motion that we proceed with the statement to the RTM.
Motion to vote.
Motion to vote on the potential statement to present to the RTM. This is why Dan's the chairman.
Second that.
So was there a second?
I-
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So do you want to do a quick roll vote?
Sure. Second was Dan.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I'll do a roll vote. Ed Lusher,
I don't know what to do with this. I haven't had good advice on what to do with this. I mean, for me to vote on this, I really have to understand where it leads to better. Maybe you could enlighten me, Abby.
So are we stepping back from a roll vote and entertaining discussion on the motion? Is that Dan?
Yeah, so specifically, where does this take us?
If the statement proceeds as it is, the statement gets printed and in the words that Dan read, issued to the RTM at their Monday meeting. So my understanding is that the intention would be for Dan to pass it out at the Monday meeting. And when that budget comes up, I'm sure it will be discussed at the outlay of the budget. And there will be a discussion of the direction of the EDC and whether or not the budget should be approved as written or should be cut in some capacity. And so I think that will probably be where some of that discussion goes, whether the RTM takes up any discussion of setting up a special group or referring to committee the role of the EDC. That's at the total discretion of the RTM. And since this is a budget meeting, they may not take that up right away because there's procedural things that they have to follow. And so the question that the RTM will be dealing with on Monday is whether or not to approve the budget the EDC originally presented. And if they are going to make any cuts, what would those cuts be? How much? And to go from there.
I thought that this commission needed some money for a person to administer the small business grant and some of the things that the town has put on the agenda, and that was part of the reason that this money was approved.
No, the small business grants is entirely funded through the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act funds. That is, and that process, as we just discussed at previous meetings, that is going forward. There's a consultant that the Board of Selectmen voted on that's in the contracting phase. And remember, we said that would come back to when that person was on board, that person would come back and have an initial start off meeting with the EDC to finalize crafting the program. And then the EDC would be the body potentially at which decisions were made about those funds being.
So this funding does not, if the RTM were to change, it has no bearing on this.
Has no bearing on the small business grants whatsoever. It has bearing on whether or not you have or there are third-party funds available to assist with the crafting of a plan of how, sort of how you work and what you want to accomplish. There are $16,000 in planning funds in this budget that could go.
I'm a person that gives things a lot of thought. I'm gonna abstain on this vote.
Dan,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
3, 4, and 1. Okay,
Okay,
motion passed.
motion passed.
Okay, so because I do not want to be seen as holding an informal meeting, I do want to make sure you all have the opportunity to see what we intend to circulate to RTM before we do so. Abby, Mark, is it okay if I send it out in a non-commentable form to the members of the body, or do you want me to send it to you to send out?
Why don't you send it to us and we'll send it out as part of the meeting minutes?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Dan, do you want folks there Monday night?
I wouldn't say I want you there, but you are welcome to come. You know, you don't know when it's going to, actually, we do know when it's going to be. Stand by, I can tell you when in the agenda it is. These are long meetings. They run 3-ish hours. You are certainly welcome and love to have the attendance, but I don't want you to feel like you must be there. Sorry.
Have they been doing public comment at the beginning of these? Because I don't know that there will be an opportunity for folks to speak once the meeting gets underway. I'm not sure how the RTM is structuring that in this go around, but typically public comment is when you know, folks would get up if you have something additional to say. If you
It actually turns out-
the room, that's fine too.
Sorry, Abby. It actually turns out Economic Development Commission is second on Monday, so if you did want to come, you could get out pretty quickly. Than us. Unless you want to stay for the conservation.
Is it at, do you know what time it's at on Monday? Sorry, I don't have that.
7 o'clock
At the town hall?
up in the auditorium.
You could also come back Wednesday if you'd like to join for the Retirement Commission, Public Library, Senior Citizens Commission, and host of other exciting projects. Okay, well, in the interest of time, thank you for your participation. Julie, again, welcome.
Thank you.
We'll motion to adjourn the meeting. Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there going to be another a meeting next week?
I thought it's the second.
Is next Thursday. I would suggest, my perspective is, since we're missing 2 existing members and 1 new member, that we keep the meeting Thursday. Whether we actually have the meeting or we just discuss as a non-meeting, I think that would be valuable to the group.
Where is that meeting and what time?
That is Town Hall in the Appleby Room at 5
5
o'clock.
And in this, it will be a meeting because folks will still be in their roles as members of the EDC. So we'll post it as an actual meeting and continue forward. And from there, the group can decide what to do going forward.
And where is this room? The Apple what?
Appleby, I'll send you an email, Julie, and then let you know kind of where to go. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I
Appreciate
don't know
it.
if we're here yet, but if we're not, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Jill had made the motion. I don't know that we heard a
We don't have
second.
a second yet.
Second.
Have a good day, everybody.
Okay.
All right. Thanks,
Nice
folks.
to meet you.
Nice meeting you.